What if the darkest parts of yourself, the ones you've spent your entire life hiding, are actually the key to becoming whole? What if everything you fear about who you really are is precisely what's keeping you from true freedom? Welcome to Stoic Pyre. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in the history of psychology, discovered something that most people spend their entire lives running from. We all carry a hidden self, a dark mirror, a shadow. And until you turn around and face it, it will silently dictate every choice you make, every relationship you destroy, and every dream you abandon. Today, we're going deep into the shadow, what it is, how it forms, and most importantly, how integrating it can transform your entire existence. So, what exactly is the shadow? Jung described it as the unconscious aspect of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. In simpler terms, it's every thought, desire, impulse, and trait that you've decided is unacceptable and buried alive in the basement of your psyche. The shadow begins forming in early childhood. As children, we quickly learn which parts of ourselves are rewarded and which are punished. Show anger? You're a bad kid. Express too much joy? Calm down. Display vulnerability? Toughen up. Each time society or our parents reject a part of us, that rejected fragment doesn't disappear. It sinks into the unconscious, forming what Jung called the shadow. But here's what makes this truly unsettling. The shadow doesn't stay quiet. It seeps out in ways you don't expect. Sudden bursts of anger, inexplicable attraction to destructive behaviors, self-sabotage at the moment of success. Jung put it this way: everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. In other words, the harder you try to be good, the more dangerous your hidden darkness becomes, because what you refuse to acknowledge doesn't weaken. It grows in power. To understand the shadow fully, you need to understand its counterpart, the persona. Jung borrowed this term from the Latin word for mask, the masks worn by actors in ancient theater. Your persona is the curated version of yourself that you present to the world. It's the professional smile at work when you're falling apart inside. It's the I'm fine when nothing is fine. It's the image you've carefully crafted to be acceptable, lovable, and successful. Now, here's the critical insight. The stronger your persona, the darker your shadow. They exist in direct proportion. Every trait you add to your public mask, every quality you perform to gain approval, creates an equal and opposite rejection in your unconscious. The nice guy who never expresses anger, his shadow seethes with rage. The strong woman who never shows weakness, her shadow drowns in unexpressed grief. The spiritual person who projects constant peace, their shadow harbors profound doubt and even cruelty. Jung warned us, the persona is a complicated system of relations between the individual consciousness and society. Fittingly enough, a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. The mask protects you, but it also imprisons you. And the longer you wear it, the more you forget there's a face underneath. How heavy is the mask you're wearing right now, and what would happen if you dared to take it off? One of the most powerful and unsettling ways the shadow reveals itself is through projection. Projection is an unconscious defense mechanism where you take qualities you cannot accept in yourself and attribute them to other people. Jung said it plainly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Think about it. That coworker whose arrogance makes your blood boil. Could it be that you've suppressed your own ambition, and seeing it expressed so freely triggers deep discomfort? That friend whose emotional neediness drains you, could it be that you've buried your own need for connection so deeply that witnessing it in others feels threatening? Projection is the shadow's favorite tool. It allows you to maintain the illusion that all the darkness is out there, in other people, in other groups, in the world, rather than acknowledging it lives inside you. This is why Jung considered projection one of the most dangerous psychological mechanisms. Entire wars have been fought because nations projected their collective shadow onto an enemy. Marriages have dissolved because partners couldn't see that what they hated in each other was what they refused to face in themselves. The moment you catch yourself in a strong emotional reaction to someone, that's your shadow waving at you, begging to be seen. Who triggers you the most? And what does that reaction reveal about what you've been hiding from yourself? Nowhere is the shadow more active than in our intimate relationships. Jung observed that we are unconsciously drawn to partners who carry the qualities we've repressed. This isn't coincidence. It's the psyche's attempt to become whole through another person. The nice person marries someone volatile, not despite the volatility, but because of it. On an unconscious level, they're drawn to someone who lives the emotional intensity they've forbidden themselves. The controlling partner finds someone passive, because passivity represents the surrender of control they secretly crave but cannot allow. And this is where relationships become battlegrounds, because what we initially find attractive in our partner, that mysterious quality, that exciting edge, is precisely what we'll come to resent. Why? Because it's a mirror reflecting back the parts of ourselves we haven't integrated. Every fight in a relationship contains shadow material. Every criticism you hurl at your partner is partially a message from your own unconscious, asking to be heard. Jung's insight transforms how we approach conflict. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When you stop blaming your partner and start asking, what is this conflict showing me about myself? That's when real transformation begins. Jung believed that dreams are the royal road to the shadow. While Freud saw dreams primarily as wish fulfillment, Jung understood them as messages from the unconscious, the psyche's attempt to communicate what the conscious mind refuses to hear. In dreams, the shadow often appears as a figure of the same sex as the dreamer, a dark stranger, a threatening pursuer, a despised enemy. If you repeatedly dream of being chased, Jung would ask, what are you running from in your waking life? If you dream of a violent confrontation, he would explore, what aggression have you been suppressing? The dream doesn't create darkness. It reveals the darkness that's already there. Jung's technique of active imagination takes this further. Rather than passively experiencing dreams, he encouraged patients to consciously engage with dream figures, to have a dialogue with the shadow. You might ask the threatening figure in your dream, what do you want? What message do you carry? The answers, Jung found, are often shocking in their honesty and healing in their impact. He wrote, the dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. Through dream work, you gain access to aspects of yourself that no amount of rational self-analysis can reach. The shadow speaks in symbols, metaphors, and emotions, the language of dreams. What recurring dream have you been ignoring? What message might your unconscious be desperately trying to deliver? Here's something most people miss about the shadow. It's not all negative. Jung introduced the concept of the golden shadow, the positive qualities, talents, and powers that you've also repressed, not because they're bad, but because they felt too big, too bold, or too threatening to the safe identity you've constructed. Maybe you suppressed your creativity because someone told you art wasn't a real career. Maybe you buried your leadership ability because standing out felt dangerous. Maybe you silenced your intelligence because being too smart made others uncomfortable. These positive qualities don't vanish. They join the shadow, waiting to be reclaimed. The golden shadow is often visible in our heroes and idols. That person you deeply admire, the qualities you see in them that fill you with longing, those very qualities exist, dormant within you. Your admiration is recognition. Your inspiration is your own unlived potential, calling to you from the depths. Jung understood that integrating the shadow isn't just about accepting your darkness. It's equally about reclaiming your light. As he wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This includes accepting your own brilliance, your own power, your own capacity for greatness. For many people, that's even harder than accepting their flaws. So, how do you actually do shadow work? Jung outlined several practical approaches that remain powerful tools for self-discovery today. First, observe your triggers. Keep a journal of moments when you have disproportionately strong emotional reactions. When someone's behavior makes you irrationally angry, disgusted, or envious, write it down. Over time, patterns will emerge. These patterns are a map of your shadow. Second, pay attention to your dreams. Before sleep, set an intention to remember your dreams. Upon waking, write them down immediately, before the conscious mind sanitizes them. Look for recurring figures, themes, and emotions. These are shadow communications. Third, practice active imagination. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and invite a dream figure or emotional state into your awareness. Don't try to control the experience. Let the images and dialogue emerge naturally. This is a conversation between your ego and your unconscious. Fourth, examine your humor. What you joke about reveals what your conscious mind considers taboo, but your shadow wants to express. Dark humor isn't just entertainment, it's a pressure valve for the shadow. Fifth, ask trusted people for honest feedback. Often, others can see our shadow more clearly than we can. Ask, what do you think I'm in denial about? The answers may sting, but they're gold for shadow work. Jung cautioned that shadow work should be approached with respect and patience. You're not trying to defeat the shadow. You're trying to befriend it. What is one quality in yourself that you've been afraid to look at directly? What would change if you finally did? The shadow doesn't only operate at the individual level. Jung identified what he called the collective shadow, the dark, repressed qualities of an entire society or culture, and this concept has never been more relevant than it is today. When a society collectively suppresses certain truths about its history, its injustices, its moral failures, those truths don't disappear. They form a collective shadow that eventually erupts in destructive ways. Scapegoating, mass hysteria, witch hunts, political extremism, and dehumanization of the other. Jung witnessed this firsthand with the rise of Nazism. He saw how an entire nation projected its collective shadow onto Jewish people, minorities, and perceived enemies. The unprocessed shame of defeat, economic humiliation, and cultural anxiety didn't vanish. It was projected outward with devastating consequences. This pattern repeats throughout history and continues today. Social media has become a powerful amplification system for the collective shadow. Mob mentality, cancel culture, and tribal warfare are all manifestations of projected shadow material. When we demonize an entire group of people, when we reduce complex humans to labels of evil or other, we are enacting the collective shadow. Jung's prescription was clear. The individual who wishes to have an answer to the problem of evil has need, first and foremost, of self-knowledge. Change the world by facing your own darkness first. What happens when you actually integrate the shadow? The results, according to Jung, are nothing short of transformative. First, you gain access to enormous psychic energy. Every trait you suppress requires energy to keep suppressed, like holding a beach ball underwater. When you integrate the shadow, that energy is released. People who do deep shadow work often report sudden bursts of creativity, vitality, and motivation that seem to come from nowhere. They're not coming from nowhere. They're coming from the energy that was locked in repression. Second, your relationships transform. When you stop projecting your shadow onto others, you begin to see people as they truly are, not as mirrors of your unresolved material. Conflict decreases, empathy increases, and intimacy deepens. Third, you develop what Jung called psychological wholeness, the state of being in conscious relationship with all aspects of your psyche. This isn't perfection, it's completeness. You don't become a saint, you become fully human, and there is immense power in that. Jung described this beautifully. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The path to enlightenment isn't about transcending your humanity. It's about embracing every part of it, including the parts that terrify you. Imagine who you could become if you stopped fighting yourself and started integrating instead. What would that freedom feel like? Living with your whole self, shadow and all, is not a destination. It's a daily practice, a lifelong journey. Jung himself was committed to this work until the very end of his life. He journaled obsessively, recorded his dreams in what became the famous Red Book, and engaged with his own shadow through decades of active imagination. The fruit of this journey is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society expects you to be, but the complete, integrated human being that your psyche has been trying to make you since birth. Individuation doesn't mean isolation. Paradoxically, the more you become yourself, the more you integrate your shadow, the more genuinely connected you become to others, because you're no longer performing a role. You're not hiding behind a persona. You're showing up as a real, complete, imperfect human being, and that authenticity creates the deepest form of connection available to us. As Jung wrote in his autobiography, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege requires courage, the courage to look into the darkness and recognize your own face staring back. The choice is yours. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. In the very next moment, you feel that surge of anger toward someone, that quiet shame you can't explain, that dream that won't let you go. Pause. Look closer. That is your shadow, reaching out, asking to finally come home. Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Choose wholeness. Choose yourself, all of yourself. If this resonated with you, subscribe and hit the bell. We go deep into the psychology that actually changes lives.